Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
And joining us to discuss the ongoing crisis in Sudan is a writer and public affairs analyst, Chude Achike. Good to have you join us.
Thank you. Good for having me. Thank you.
So there have been several reactions to the evacuation of Nigerians, in Sudan. Some other people say, look, countries like France, countries like the European Union, rather, Britain and US, also having challenges evacuating their own nationals, and so it is a general crisis. But let me get your thoughts on the evacuation process so far.
Well, anyway we look at it, it leaves much to the desired. We should have done better. And we should not continue to use other people as a standard of or a barometer for determining how effective and how good our arrangements have been. The reality is that our people are in harm's way. The reality is that we have a duty and obligation to get them out of the wars on Sudan right now, and to ensure that they are safe. And yes, they are running into some issues of them. Some of these issues not deliberately, contrived. Some absolutely beyond the ability of the federal government to do anything about it. For instance, the issue of the border between, Egypt, and the fact that the Egyptian authorities are proving a stumbling block in terms of getting our citizens evacuated. In fact, from what I read somewhere else, that I think the Abike Bureau, so the person in charge of Poland, was saying that they might have to move people from Egypt, somewhere in Egypt, to the port of Sudan, a distance of over 2,000 kilometers, and I might take almost 24 hours, a full day of driving to get Nigerians across to the port of Sudan for eventual evacuation to Nigeria. And so these are some of the issues. We also had such issues with the Ethiopian authorities. Everybody is careful. They don't want certain undesirable elements to get into their countries on the pretext of trying to evacuate citizens from Sudan. I think that some of these arrangements should have started much earlier. And we must be able to have this early warning trigger, so that when we begin to see the manifestations of the crisis degenerate, when we see this crisis degenerate, a possible situation of conflict, we should be able to get our people out on time before conflict eventually breaks out. But that is not the case. So yes, we commend the efforts that they have made. Nigerians obviously were not happy. I've seen videos of our citizens that were stranded in the desert because our payments were not made. Obviously, the government has tried to say that, look, that agreement by the transporters themselves had nothing to do with the federal government. We don't know how true that is. But the most important thing is that situation has already
been resolved, and they are being evacuated. But I want to, because of time, I just want to quickly look even broadly into what's going on in Sudan. We understand that the United Nations is sending one of its envoys to mediate in the crisis, but it doesn't seem like both generals are willing to negotiate until they have exhausted their military options. Now, where do you see the possibility of peace talks?
Yeah, well, it's about carving out territories for the generals. It's not about the Sudanese people. We must say it, because the Sudanese people are suffering in the process of this, physical engagement. And you would expect that the people who are patriotic, people who love their country, will be to their people, will not be doing this to their country. But it's about the acquisition of power for the purpose of having their hands in the tills. I mean, this is what we're seeing. So whether you have military engagement in the politics of nations in Africa, for instance, the end product is that it's a continuation of the governance that has, continued under the various military dispensations, and that is very, very unfortunate. So yes, there is every attempt is being made to ensure some level of peace, and peace can be achieved. The reality is that peace can be achieved at any particular point in time, even at this moment. But I'm afraid that the two generals that are fighting themselves are dogging, And so what they are trying to do is to gain as much territory as possible, so that when if it eventually gets to a level of a peace talk, that they can boast that they are in control of such amount of territory, and on the basis of that, use it for the purpose of a negotiation. So the African Union must do much more. IGAD, the regional organization, must do much more, and the United Nations too. So we are looking at the concerted effort to try to get these two generals to make some very serious commitments that they are willing, to do everything. And they must have the political will once they make this, agreement to see to its implementation. And I think that is where we are. We must not allow this to be the way, because of course, it's building every single day. And again, but most critically, of most important to those people who are interested in securing peace in the Sudan, is to ensure that
Mr. Achike,
that are being supported by foreign. Yes.
Again, apologies for butting in, but it doesn't seem like there is a proper humanitarian response on the ground, because we understand that the scale of the humanitarian needs is increasing. It doesn't also look like there is immediate political solution to the crisis. Could this become a full-blown civil war? And what is the implication of that for the region?
That's what we're seeing. Because obviously it takes time to even establish a proper humanitarian, regime, within the crisis itself. There are so many things that have to go into it, so many components itself. You have to get the buy-in of the combatants first of all. You also have to get the buy-in of even their own commanders on the ground and their foot soldiers on the ground. It is not easy to implement, But beyond that, again, talking about long-term peace, what I was trying to say is that there are also foreign powers that are involved in the crisis that is going on. And so you cannot just take out the two, combatants and say that once they have an agreement that they are going to implement it. No. You need to be able to bring in their backers, who are governments of other countries. You need to bring their buy-in, so that they can also put pressure on the people that they are supporting on the ground. Because they are giving them resources, they are giving them arms and all that. And that's what makes this particular situation very, very much complicated. They are increasing.
All right, that's where we would leave it. Thank you so much for talking to us. Writer and Public Affairs Analyst Chude Achike. All right, let's take a break.